known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing. Popping, locking, stopping, let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip hop, it's like it stings.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Sports Buzz, the Fan-atical View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, live in studio on this summer, sunny spring day, March 22nd. Almost up to 80 degrees, it seemed like out there today, but we are here live in Danbury, Connecticut, Comcast Cable Channel 23, 6 to 6:30. I got my man Bob Broad Jr. back in action.
Back in action.
Hope your father is doing well.
He's feeling a little better.
And I'm sure the Whalers' performance maybe.
Oh, yes.
And maybe some of the bumbling by the Jets maybe cheered him up as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a Giant fan. He don't care about the Jets.
Well, he can laugh at the Jets.
Oh,
like
yes.
everybody else,
especially all this this craziness.
The Jets, they just like to steal the headlines. We should be sitting here talking about the Sweet 16 and all that stuff. Maybe the Linsanity coming back or Melo.
He's starting to make a little headway since we got a new coach.
Yeah, you know, the Knicks, 5-game winning streak, bunch going on with them. But the Tebowmania has hit Broadway, so that's what we're going to have to get to. But first off, let's talk Danbury Whalers. What do you got going on, Bob, on your Spotlight on? I'm sure you're always covering them.
Oh, yes, we've been keeping them busy. They've been keeping me busy.
Of course, all the coverage you can see on Spotlight on Tuesday nights, 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
We're here Wednesdays at noon.
Of course, and they made quick work of the Thousand Island
yes, 2 games and out.
Privateers sent packing 7-1 on the road, that closeout game.
Great day for St. Patty's Day.
Yeah, green jerseys all around, and Coach said it was their most complete game of the season.
Yes.
Very pleased, thinks they're peaking at the right time, and we talked about how they won 10 out of 12, I think it was, coming down the stretch of the regular season. They get the great 3-game, 2 out of 3 series overtime winner against Brooklyn, their nemesis from a year ago, to send them off to this matchup with Thousand Island. And, they just played tremendous. 4-3 win at home on Friday night. Saturday, 7-1 on the road.
Yes, I was at TK's watching the...
Yeah, I saw TK's had a huge crowd.
Actually, 2 steps. 2 steps.
Oh, 2 steps and
yeah,
TK's,
they will be doing simulcasting this Saturday and Sunday. So anybody can't make it to the games down in Jersey.
Yeah, and the schedule is this Saturday and Sunday is in New Jersey. They play in Wayne, New Jersey, as a matter of fact. Saturday's game is 7:30, Sunday 4 o'clock, and then Friday
is back here
for the game 3. And this is best 3 out of 5 now, not 2 out of 3 anymore. And New Jersey, the Outlaws, number 1 team by far and away, 49-0-1 record on the season, including they were 3-7 the Whalers went against the Outlaws this season, so they handed the Whalers 7 losses during the year. But they've been kind of sitting around. We were wondering about that schedule when everything broke.
It kept changing and changing and changing.
Well, we figured out what it was. They had a second-round bye.
Yeah.
And the teams that won the first round went on ahead, and there is the schedule right there. We got it for the Commissioner's Cup final of the FHL playoffs here. So, the Whalers, big, awesome job by them making it here to the finals. So game 3 and 4 will be back here in Danbury, if necessary. I'm sure there will be at least a game 4, if not a game 5. I think the Whalers are playing great. I think the Outlaws being maybe a little bit rusty. No competition in the first round for them. The opponent they had was horrible. They've been sitting around this extra week or 2 now waiting to play, while the Whalers have been playing good competition and playing well. So they've been coming together strong. So I think that's going to work in the Whalers' favor. We'll see how it plays out. But Friday and Saturday, the 30th and 31st, will be here in Danbury, and we'll be covering that, of course, next week as we get ready for those games. So, overall, they got to be feeling pretty good, wouldn't you think, Bob?
I would say they're very confident, and the coach says we sure could be going all the way.
And Vitry, the goaltender, the FHL Rookie of the Year, also was the Player of the Month for the last month of regular season. He says he's a game changer for them, really a game winner for them, standing on his head as he does at times, and he keeps them in any possible game. When you have a goalie in net at any level in hockey that can make saves like he does, you've got a great chance to win. So we'll be keeping track of the Whalers this weekend. Big series for them, and I'm sure Danbury fans who actually travel well, not only do they sell out at home and get big crowds, but they actually travel well.
They're almost sold out in Jersey, from what I understand.
And you can go to NewJerseyOutlaws.com website to get tickets for the road games. You might even be able to get those on the Danbury website as well, DanburyWhalers.com, and get at least the home tickets, or just go over to the Danbury Ice Arena and get those tickets. Sticking local before we get to the big stories going on in the sports world. We've been touching on all the high school activity, state championships and whatnot.
I heard about it.
Immaculate High School boys, 67-53, finish off the incredible dream season, if you will, Class S championship as they beat Capital Prep, going away easily as all their games were. What was it? 50-point margin of victory, 38-point margin of victory, 25-point margin of victory leading up to that championship game. I think it was 1976, was it? Their one and only other state championship. So hats off to the IHS boys who had just an unbelievable run this year. Great season for them. They win it. And then also the Newtown girls. First ever for them. This was a little bit different for them. They made it to the final. They hold on to win 44-42 against Mercy in the Class L, their first ever state championship. Coming into that game, they had to come from behind many times in the playoffs. They made a huge come from behind win against Hill House, I know. And this time, they were playing from the lead throughout. And Mercy was the team chipping away. 15 seconds left in that game. Mercy takes their first lead. Newtown comes right back and answers, gets the go-ahead bucket, a couple free throws to ice it. They win. And did you see, not only did they win the state championship, they end up in the final coaches poll, number one in the state. So the Newtown Lady Nighthawks, incredible season for them. They go 22-4 and they win it all. And I have to mention the Brookfield boys swimming team, who, we know they upended Pomperaug SWC champion, then they went and dominated their Class M state championship. They go to the state open, Bob, and they're a small school when you compare them with other schools, even Pomperaug in their own SWC. And they go up against Fairfield Prep. They lose. They finish second place. Unbelievable. 412 to 407. And if you know anything about swimming, you know that is by the slimmest of margins. And it came down to the final relay, which they actually finished ahead of Fairfield Prep, but Greenwich came in front of them, which kept them from getting the number one points and actually taking the number one at the state open. But incredible run for the Bobcats swim team. So that's the local stuff. We want to go to now. We have to go to this whole from Linsanity to Tim Sanity, or is it stupidity, on the sake of the NFL and the New York Jets. The Jets, who just cannot stay out of the headlines. They have to be grabbing headlines. And they have to be selling jerseys, and the jersey sales.
I see the jerseys are for sale already for
Tebow.
The
backup quarterback is now, front and center on the Jets website, selling Tebow jerseys left and right. This is unbelievable. First of all, Peyton Manning goes to the Broncos. Which, when I heard early on the Broncos were in the mix, I thought, really? Why would Denver want to go ahead, bring in Manning? Obviously one of the great quarterbacks of all time. Some people maybe think that way.
But I don't think he's 100%
I don't know if I think that myself.
that amount of money either.
His playoff record isn't as good. Maybe he isn't as, Tebow got a win right away in his first playoff series there. But anyways, so they bring in Manning off 4 neck surgeries. Is he 100%? Nobody even knows if he's going to be able to play or if he's going to be able to play at a high level. Sure, he's gone in and done some workouts, throwing the ball around. Has he taken any hits?
No.
What's going to happen when he's out in Denver and that cold, frigid air comes blowing in off the Rocky Mountains and the snow starts coming down and he gets that little stiff neck going and starts tightening up and somebody drills him? He's going to be done. So it's a question mark as far as his health. At his advanced age, is it all over for Peyton? I mean, Tebow, if you're a results-oriented guy and you go strictly by wins and losses, the Broncos, from the point that they were 6-0, if you remember, 2 years ago?
Yes.
They started that season 6-0 to the point when Tebow took over 2+ seasons later. They had the worst record in the NFL, 7 wins over a course of 2+ seasons they went. And he comes in, takes over immediately. They win 6 out of 7, make a run to the playoffs, beat the Steelers in the first round in what was a thrilling game. The fan base loves him. Tebowmaniac's going like crazy. They actually sold a ton of jerseys today.
Yes.
They scooped up every jersey, every paraphernalia possible about Tebow out in Denver. All those fans wanted them still after he is gone. So, you know, he's young, could maybe possibly be improving. You build the team around him, defensive oriented, you know, whatever they do. But to get rid of him now from Manning, I think is a little bit crazy myself. And then the Jets, they extend. First of all, they say, you know, we passed on Manning. Manning didn't want to come here, but they tried to get Manning, which sends a bad message to Sanchez.
Right.
Then they extend Sanchez, 3 years, guaranteed $20 million. And now they go ahead and bring in Tebowmania, Tim Sanity, to run the Wildcat.
Yeah.
The Wildcat is dead, Bob.
Yeah.
Who is your offensive coordinator in New York for the Jets? Tony Sparano, who was fired from the Dolphins. He stopped running the Wildcat. He invented the Wildcat 3 years ago, caught people by surprise. It was a gimmick thing that he did. Some other teams latched on. They were in it for a couple years. It was mildly successful in that first year, even less so in the second year. By the third year, Ronnie Brown, who went to the Eagles last year, did you hear Ronnie Brown's name mentioned once?
No.
All season?
No.
No. He couldn't get on the field. Why? Because the NFL caught up to the Wildcat. The Dolphins stopped running it. Other teams that tried to put it in, they stopped running it. Now, the Jets want to bring in Tebow to run the Wildcat here. Tebow didn't even run the Wildcat in Denver. He's a starting quarterback who ran with the football. I mean, it's unbelievable what these Jets do and what some of their fans are buying into. Many of them are not buying into this, and they think it's an absolute outrage, disgrace, embarrassment. The fact that, you know, first of all, they make this trade. Second of all, they didn't even read the contract. And this whole deal almost went up in flames last night as they were on the hook for $5 million that they didn't know. And the Broncos completely threw them under the bus, saying the Jets announced the trade before we announced the trade, before the NFL okayed the trade, and before they even read his contract, which stated they owed the Broncos $5 million if they took him, because they had given him bonus money.
And plus they give up what? How many picks?
4th round, 2 picks. They swap 6 and a 7, and they give up a 4th round pick. You know, I mean, the 4th round pick could be a big pick. 6th round pick, you never know. Hey, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round. So, I mean, they give us some picks. They pay out some money. But the fact is, it's just, I mean, this team, which, you know, had a terrible locker room last night. It was a last year, team divided. And they're trying to regain this locker room unity, and they're going to bring in a player who's just going to drive a divide down the locker room, because soon as Sanchez throws his first interception, guarantee you, first quarter of the first game this coming season, if they don't score a touchdown in the opening drive, people are going to be chanting, "We want Tebow, we want Tebow." That is not good for your quarterback, your starter. You know, it's just a ridiculous situation for the Jets. It's all a money grab and a headline grab. Front page of the, you know, all the New York papers today, and back page.
What's Sexy Rexy say?
Sexy Rexy says, you know, it provides an extra element to our team. Sanchez is our quarterback. It's a nice thing to have 2 QBs who have won playoff games on your roster. I mean, give me a break. Come on. This is just the beginning of the end for Sanchez, which, by the way, may be a good thing for Jets. Maybe Sanchez is not the real deal, even though he had his first 2 successful seasons and he did well for them and he won those 4 playoff games on the road, got them to the AFC Championship game, but he had a setback this year, which may not have been his problem. It may have been more because the offensive line was bad. They let a bunch of their core players, character guys in the locker room go. You know, all those guys who took care of that locker room, which was unattended to last year and had all the problems, you know. So it's just ridiculous to me that they're going to do this situation. I mean, I personally think Tebow will be the starter by, maybe week 4, maybe mid-season. At some point, he will be the starter. Sanchez will be gone. Maybe our old friend, Mr. Kevin Gallagher from Time Out with Kevin Gallagher, he sent me a message last night. He says they'll trade him for the draft.
Yeah.
Trade Sanchez by draft time, move up in the draft, and try to get some players that way. Who knows what's going to happen? But Tebow will be the starter for the Jets sooner rather than later, and Sanchez will be gone, and they'll be on the hook for $20 million for him. Unbelievable situation. The other big NFL news of note, we thought all along that the penalties were going to be stiff and there would be a heavy price to pay for the bounty that was going on down in New Orleans for the Saints, and it was stiff. I don't know that I saw Sean Payton getting suspended for a year. I knew Greg Williams was possibly going to be exiled forever and kicked out of the league, and impossible that he is. He was given at least a minimum of 1 year suspension, and then they will review his case and see if he can come back after that. It's an indefinite suspension. But Sean Payton, who covered up the bounty because the NFL knew about this years ago, they went to them, they told him to cut it out, no more with the bounty. And he said it wasn't going on. We would take care of it. It won't be happening anymore. He instructed his assistant coaches to cover up the whole situation. So they engaged not only in the bounty, but they lied to the league and they covered it up and they got caught. And he is suspended a year without pay, $7 million salary. Unbelievable situation. And Greg Williams, who was brought in to be the St. Louis Rams defensive coordinator under new coach Jeff Fisher there. Fisher in his press conference yesterday said it was warranted. Once we found out what was happening, we've been making plans, getting ourselves ready for the heavy suspension that would take place, and Greg Williams is out. So they need a new defensive coordinator in St. Louis. So not a good start to his tenure for the Rams. Tough go for them because they get brought into this kind of innocently enough, but they signed the wrong guy, guilty by association. So I'm not sure who their new defensive coordinator is going to be. But they got to find somebody, and who's going to coach for who's going to be the de facto coach for the Saints this year? It might be the Rams' former coach there who took over for them, Spagnuolo. So we'll see what happens in New Orleans, but that is a huge deal. Unprecedented suspensions going on for them. Let's shift our gears before we close with the March Madness because we already lost a bunch of times quickly, but we'll touch on the NBA. 5-0 now under Coach Woodson. D'Antoni is gone, and the Brick City Bombers there, they have responded in kind by winning 5 straight. A big home-and-home series. They swept the Indiana Pacers. Big series this past weekend. They, of course, had that blowout against Portland. They took care of Toronto then last night. Nice, hard-fought defensive struggle. They come up with a win on the road in Philly against the Sixers. So they are suddenly back in the mix, in the standings, trying to get themselves, secure a playoff spot because now Milwaukee is coming on strong and matching them win for win. They play the Celtics tonight, so they are testing them as far as that 8th seed in the playoffs, and we're really inside, less than 20 games, 18, 16 games or so left.
For the start.
So with this compacted, shortened season, for the Knicks, this is what it's been all year long. Win streaks followed by losing streaks followed by win streaks. So it's going on again for them as they're hot, stat and mellow, happy again now that D'Antoni's gone and they're getting their play back. For the NHL, we'll take our time next week with that. Rangers, are back holding off those Penguins, high-flying Penguins who are coming on strong. Bruins doing the same, trying to avoid going from the 2 seed to the 7 seed, basically, is what could happen for them if Ottawa catches them. They got a 3-point lead. I think the Rangers right now have a 3-point lead. St. Louis Blues are the number 1 team. Interesting enough, what is going on out west, down at the bottom, you could go from the 8 seed to the 3 seed. The Dallas Stars right now are 3 because they're heading their division, but they could drop to 8 or out.
Right.
And the 8 seed could go from 8 to 3 or out, and the 9th place team, 10th place team are all in that division, they could go from being out to 8 to 3. The last 2 weeks of the season or so, they're down to what?
Yeah.
12 games or
Yeah,
less?
about
8
that.
games? I think 10 games even. Under 10 games, I believe, in the NHL. So a lot still to be determined there in the NHL. Sweet 16, thankfully, maybe we can, after, college basketball takes the last 4 days off,
Yeah.
all hell breaks loose in the
Yeah.
sports world. Maybe we can just concentrate on the college basketball for the next 4 days and stop with all the nonsense. Doubtfully, because it's going to be
I don't think that'll happen.
Tebowmania on Broadway. Why, oh why, do we have to have him right here front and center? It was bad enough when he was way out west in Denver. Unbelievable, but it's Big Ten versus Big East tonight. 3 out of the 4 games going down this evening, and the other game pits the other Big East school. So 4 Big East teams left, and all 4 are in action tonight. Syracuse, Wisconsin, Cincinnati, who I have in the Final Four, as a matter of fact, in my bracket, going against Ohio State. Michigan State, Louisville, Tom Izzo against Master P, Coach Pitino, Ricky P there. And then Marquette against the SEC school, Florida. The SEC has 2 schools left, Florida and, of course, Kentucky. The ACC has 2 schools left. One of them is not Duke. Down goes Duke. Down goes Duke. The only thing that could make the UConn Husky fans feel better after they didn't show up for their game against Iowa State, facing that perfect cyclone in the first round, was that Duke goes down to Lehigh. Unbelievable in the first round. So they are out. Big Ten also has 4 schools remaining. And there's 4 schools from Ohio. Ohio State, Cincinnati, Xavier, and Ohio University. Nice, the MAC school. They're the biggest surprise so far right now. Ohio and Xavier, 13 seeds, 10 seeds. And NC State, the surprise ACC team, they're an 11 seed. They are in, but mostly it's kind of powerhouse, big name teams going down here in the Sweet 16. And you got to love this Big Ten, Big East matchups tonight. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Syracuse, of course, playing without Fab Melo. They're going up against a Wisconsin team that likes to slow it down, play a lot of defense. Cincinnati, I like Cincinnati a lot. Ohio State, maybe Sullinger has had a pretty good tournament so far. They got by the Gonzaga team, which completely shut down West Virginia. West Virginia was a Big East team that should not have been there, and they didn't show up. The Zags ran them out, and then Ohio State shut them down impressively. So Ohio State's looked pretty good. Cincinnati took care of Florida State and Texas. So a nice run by Cincinnati. They play defense, and I think they have very good offensive weapons for them.
Yep.
So that's a nice matchup. Michigan State, Louisville. This is going to be a great game, I think. Very good test for both these teams. Louisville, maybe not tested so much. They beat a good New Mexico team out of the Mountain West, and they beat Davidson, who is a nice team. But Michigan State had to go through LIU Brooklyn, and then they took care of St. Louis, which played them very well. So that's going to be an interesting game, probably low scoring, because Louisville didn't score very many points, and St. Louis kept Michigan State from scoring a lot of points. Marquette and Florida, that'll be the game that goes run and gun all night. And the games that take place tomorrow, rematch city right here, Kentucky versus Indiana. The Hoosiers back in action, back in the Sweet 16, going against the young guns from Kentucky. And Kentucky ran Iowa State out of the gym after Iowa State took care of UConn. So that was an impressive performance by them. They are playing well, but they're a freshman-laden team. So we'll see what happens with them. And Baylor, unfortunately, I picked Missouri out of the Big 12 to go far instead of picking Baylor, who I really liked all year, but
You were skeptic?
I was skeptic because of some of their big losses, but they're the team that ends up in the Sweet 16, while Missouri was stunned. The other 15 seed knocking out a 2 seed. Twice it happened in this tournament when it only happened 4 times in history. Norfolk State out of Virginia, and they had a big New York, actually. A lot of kids from Brooklyn were on that team. So it was a big win for them. Missouri actually played offensively very well, but they could not get any stops. Norfolk State played out of their mind in that game, knocked them off. I had Missouri in the Final Four. That's my one team that is out. So that was a big blow for me, but I'm still doing okay, in case you're wondering. But Baylor is in against Xavier. Xavier, a little bit of surprise because they had kind of a down year. Remember, they had the huge brawl against Cincinnati. I mean, wouldn't that be something if you get Xavier and Cincinnati in the final? That's the only way they could meet up again. But they had that big, huge brawl early in the season, which was unbelievable. And Xavier kind of went down, Cincinnati went up. But Xavier finds himself in familiar territory because if you know Xavier, you know when it comes to tourney time, they rise up and they play well. So they're going at it with Baylor tomorrow night. And then you got North Carolina taking on Ohio. Carolina's dealt with injuries here. Their starting point guard's got the fractured wrist. He's got a removable cast. I don't know how you play. I mean, I've come from somebody who's fractured his wrist 5 times. Count it, Bob. 5 times I've fractured wrist. 3 on the right, 2 on the left. I don't know how you're going to play with a fractured wrist.
How do you take it off and put it back on?
That must be like the minorest of frame. I mean, he's got a screw in there. They did surgery. It's on his actually right hand. He's left-handed, so it's not on his. It's on his off hand. I don't see any way he can be effective. You need 2 hands to play basketball. So Carolina and also their shot blocker's been overcoming injury and trying to play through it as well. And then the other game, you've got NC State taking on Kansas. Kansas, did they survive a tough game against Purdue? Disappointing for Purdue, who was winning the whole time, and Kansas literally stole that 2 steals in the final minute of that game for layups that won it. Purdue played a valiant game in that game, but they could not advance. So Kansas survives. They get NC State, who played a very good game against Georgetown. They were down early in that game, but they come out and they get it going, and they end up in the Sweet 16. So it's an interesting Sweet 16 going on. Again, it's all about Big East, Big Ten tonight. We'll see what happens. I think at this point, I like Syracuse because they're up against Wisconsin. I got to pick with my Cincinnati team. That's a matchup of 2 Ohio teams.
Right.
Cincinnati, of course, going against the big Buckeyes of the Big Ten. But Cincinnati could put a big jolt in their system right there. I'm going with Louisville over Michigan State tonight. And I'm going to have to go, I think, with Florida to knock off Marquette this evening. But I still like Marquette a lot. They've had a great season, and they got 2 senior leaders on that team. So we are running out of time. We will, of course, be back in action next week, live once again, 6 to 6:30. And, of course, you can always watch the show from 1 to 1:30. Of course, my guys in the studio, Expose Cinema, Friday nights at 10 o'clock and Tuesdays at 1, Mike Toohey's show. And I think we got John Newmiller back in action tonight. He was covering the big governor of the state came into town, so John had to bail on us last week. We understand, we forgive, but you can catch out his show on Saturdays.
At 7.
Danbury Live, correct?
Yes.
Danbury Live, 7 o'clock Saturdays. You can check those guys out. And, of course, go Whalers this weekend. The local bars are simulcasting that. You can watch it online as well at home. And we are out of here. We'll see you next week.